Hi guys, this is your reading video for Wednesday, October 2nd. Your substitute should have passed out a reading packet to you that says model poetry presentation. You're going to be needing this for the next week, so please make sure you're hanging on to that. And also on Google Classroom, I need you to open the doc that says Reading 10/2. That you're going to be using as we go through this today. I want you to look up on our bulletin board in a room that says performance task, because we're winding up and finishing up this first module. So for the performance task, we have been thinking about what inspired Jack to write poetry. And we also talked about what inspired our expert poet, a famous poet, to write poetry. And then in the past few days, you have been starting to write your own poetry that you have been inspired to write for one reason or another. So, thinking in that poetry aspect, poets and authors oftentimes, when they release new work, so either a new book or a new poem, they will do a book tour or poetry readings, things of that nature. So when they present these poems, we're just going to go to poetry right now. So when poets present these poems, they talk about what inspires them. And so that's why we've been so big on what you've been inspired by right now. Because for your performance task, making a presentation and about your own poem and what has inspired you to write that poetry. So you're going to be giving a presentation in about 2 weeks' time and sharing your poem between both Mrs. Barber's class, my class, and Miss Hewley's class. We're also inviting your parents in. And you're just going to do actually today's part in front of your parents or family and friends. So you'll be sharing an introduction, which in that introduction you're going to be talking about what inspired you. And then you'll be sharing your actual poem. And if you've written several poems, and you're just going to be sharing your main poem that you rewrote yesterday for your mid-unit assessment. So right now I want you to pause this video and go in to the reading doc on Google Classroom. And I want you to answer the first, I'm sorry, my page just jumped on me. The first 3 questions. How do you feel about books? So either you like books or you don't like books. How do you feel about them? How do you feel about reading? So reading and books are 2 different things. Reading is the actual art of doing something, and then the book is just the physical copy of a book. So how do you feel about reading? And number 3, are books and reading important? Why or why not? These 3 answers should be in complete sentences. You've been working on complete sentences. So Miss Hewley and I will definitely be checking for that. So go ahead and pause this video right now and take a moment and answer those 3 questions. All right. So you should have answered questions 1 through 3 now. Just to get you in the mindset of thinking about poetry, writing, reading, and books itself, and how you feel about it. That is a really good guiding point for Miss Hewley and I to see how you're feeling about reading. And we are super impressed with your poetry so far. You guys are really knocking it out of the park. So Today's learning targets are: I can write an introduction to a presentation about what inspired me to write my poem using complete sentences. So, and that is the one objective or learning target that we're going to focus on today. So, I can write an introduction to a presentation about what inspired me to write my poem using complete sentences. So right now I need you to grab this packet out, your model poetry presentation. This is just the poem and the introduction. I want you to be aware of that right now. So I want you to follow along as I read out loud. Breathing fire. He turns his head and pricks his ears to a sound that my ears can't hear. And suddenly he bolts, running like the wind. A fiery red blur that I can barely focus my eyes on. Legs reaching and stretching spray clods of dirt like confetti at a wedding. Black mane and tail streaming out behind him, flickering like dark flames licking at the air. He stops suddenly, throwing his head high, and flared nostrils snort the smoke of fire like a dragon in the crisp morning air. My poem, Breathing Fire, is about my horse. I was inspired to write my poem about him because he means a lot to me and I spend a lot of time with him. I particularly love to watch him run. When he runs, I see a fiery mythical creature, so I tried to convey this precisely through my word choice. So yesterday we were working on word choice. That's what they're talking about, that word choice. My horse's coat is bright red, and in the morning sunlight, it reminds me of the red glow of fire. In the line, a fiery red blur that I can barely focus my eyes on, I use the words fiery red to describe this precisely. Also, he has a black mane and tail that stream out behind him when he runs. The way his hair moves in the wind makes me think of flames flickering, which is why I wrote black mane and tail streaming behind him, flickering like the dark flames licking at the air. I chose the word licking because the tips of his hair flutter like tongues licking at the air. Another thing that makes me think of a fiery mythical creature is when he suddenly stops dead and throws his head high in the air. He snorts and breathes heavily from running fast, reminding me of a dragon breathing fire. So I wrote, and flared his nostrils, snort the smoke of fire like a dragon in the crisp morning air. I chose to describe the crisp morning air because in the morning, when it is particularly cold, breath in the air often looks like plumes of smoke in the air. The words I've chosen in my poem were chosen to help you imagine my horse as the fiery mythical creature that inspires me. I hope that inspires you to see magical qualities next time you see a running horse. So, will your introduction today look like this? No. Miss Yulie and I do not expect that whatsoever. Today it's going to be a very basic introduction. If we look back at that Reading 10-2 doc on your Google Classroom, what is this presentation about? I want you to notice that right here, where it says it begins with my poem, right here, my poem, that part right there is just the presentation. Above that is just the poem. So, number 4, what is the presentation about? What is this person talking about? What is this presentation about? Answer that question. Number 5, what is the gist of paragraph 1? This right here, that is my poem, that is paragraph 1. What is the gist of paragraph 1? Next, what is the gist of paragraph 3? That starts with my horse's coat. My horse's coat. What is the gist of paragraph 2? I'm sorry, I think I said 3 before. But what is the gist of paragraph 2? And then on number 7, what is the gist of paragraph 3? That one is the words I have chosen. The words I have chosen. So as you're writing the gist of those paragraphs, I want you to think about, why was this presentation separated into different parts? Why did they choose 3 paragraphs? What was the gist of those paragraphs, and how could you make your introduction today look kind of like that? Yesterday you worked on word choice with your poem. Yesterday you worked on punctuation on your poem. So that word choice paragraph should be no issue, because you've already made those changes in your word choice. So once you have answered through question 7, the gist of all the paragraphs, Miss Healy and I want you to look again at those 3 paragraphs, which is the introduction itself. And then look back at the question form at number 8. Question 8 is, what information was included in the introduction? Why? So answer that. What information was included in that introduction? What specific parts? I'll start you out. The first thing that we saw was the poem title. The next we saw was I was inspired to write my poem. Da 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 da. So first, in that first paragraph, it has the poem title and why they were inspired to write that poem. Next, you're going to get out a piece of lined notebook paper, and you're going to begin to write an introduction for your presentation. So remember, for a performance task, you've already written your poem. We've just done a draft of it, and we're going to continue to make that poem pretty stellar so we can publish it and share it with our friends and family. But with that presentation, you need to have an introduction. So your introduction is going to, once we have it written out, it's going to look something very similar to this. Just like when we were writing our essay the last couple of weeks, once you get your lined paper and you start working, you're going to skip lines in between as you're writing your introduction. What I want you to do is start your introduction as this person has: my poem, then your title and quotes. Because it's a poem, your poem title goes in quotes. So tell us your poem title and then what it is about. Then your next sentence should say, I was inspired by whatever, whomever it may be, of what inspired you to write your poem, and tell us why. The next paragraph, you're going to go into some word choice, why you chose those words. And then the third paragraph is going to explain why you chose those words and what is it going to help others, how is that going to help others be inspired. So make sure you're getting that introduction written. Make sure you have questions 1 through 8 on Google Docs answered. And when you are done with that, you may take time to read your poetry book and make a post in your poetry journal. If you have any questions, try your best, but save your questions for tomorrow. You can write them down on a Post-it or on your piece of paper. But please make sure that you are writing your introduction. Start that introduction with my poem and the title, and then what inspired you to write that poem. Skip lines on that paper and make sure your name is on the top of it. And we will continue to dig deep into this tomorrow and keep formatting that presentation so we are good to go for our presentation day with our parents. I hope you have a great day. Rest of your day with reading. Good luck. Bye.